Good day to all of our listeners, and welcome to Soundproof. We are on to our 16th episode this bye-week. I'm going to catch myself in advance of saying week because I know I do it. It's a bad habit. Anyway, my name is Brendan Lewis. I'm joined by Jake Muller, and respectively we go by Mr. BDog46 and Major Bowman on the internet. Some of us with and some of us without underscores in their Twitter handle. But anyway, we're coming back to you.
Don't call me out like that.
I was you don't know who I was calling out. But we're back here with our 16th episode, and we're excited to take you through, of course, our usual content in the first half of the episode, including our Dash 16 Pokemon, the ladder, and then a couple of recent online tournaments, which are really picking up in influence and in metagame trends and things like that. And then in the second half of our episode, we're really excited about the guests we have this week. And it is none other than Jen Badamo. You may have heard of her before, who is joining our show this week to talk about her experiences in tournament organizing. So we're really looking forward to that. Full disclosure, we just recorded it, and it was a really great segment. So please look forward to that.
We beg you.
Please. But also please listen to this part. And before,
so for now we're gonna start off with those.
Yeah, just real quick before we go on. I just I could save this for the end, but when it's more likely that you are listening. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everybody for listening. Jake and I just a minute ago were peeking at some of the numbers that we've had as far as listeners over the past few weeks, and we just really appreciate all of your support. It's great to have all of you listening, and I know there's a bunch of you that have recently joined us over the past couple weeks as we've had some really phenomenal guests in Zach, and then of course Justin last week, and we're going to continue to bring you some awesome content this week. So please. First of all, thank you and continue to listen to our podcast because we really have a lot of fun. It's a passion project that we have a lot of fun making. Yeah. So we hope you're enjoying it.
We're not in it. We're not in it for the numbers or the very vast amounts of money that we are making from this podcast.
Yes.
But
my coffers are full.
But it's really cool that this has been so well received. This is just something we do because we love it, and so seeing that you guys enjoy it too is really neat. We just crossed 2,500 total listens on our last podcast, which is really cool. I didn't realize that until like just before we were just kind of looking at the numbers for fun, and I saw that and I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. So convenient time for us to kind of check our numbers and see that milestone. But here's to 2,500, maybe 25,000 million more.
Yep.
Who knows?
Because
we'll keep going
that's
until
the amount of dollars we've made, so we may as well get that number.
Yeah, 2,500,000 million.
So anyway, we will jump into our Dash 16s for the week, which I'm sure there are some niche favorites in here, but my general impression was that it's an uninspiring bunch this week with maybe one or two notable exceptions. But the first Pokemon is number 16, which is arguably the most generic Pokemon that exists, and that's Pidgey.
It's one of the most resemblant of an actual animal in that it literally just looks like a bird.
Which is kind of a bad thing in this scenario, I suppose. At least it was named a little more creatively than Spearow, which is just a sparrow. Or seal.
That is not bad.
I always forget about seal.
And Dugong is an animal name too, if you didn't know that.
Yep.
It's like an actual animal.
And then speaking of, the next Pokemon, number 116, is Horsey, which is a seahorse.
Horsey's cute though. I think it's cool. I like the progression of that line. Mm-hmm. I think Kingdra's a really good addition to that line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kingdra was.
And Horsey's also
arguably necessary.
One of the only. What?
I said Kingdra's arguably a necessary addition to the line.
Yeah, you could say that. And Horsey's a really good shiny too. The whole family has great shinies.
Are they purple?
Which is Horsey is kind of greenish.
Okay.
Seadra is a deeper blue, and then Kingdra's purple.
Okay, I assumed there would be some sort of purple involved if you were standing the shiny line.
I feel called out.
Yeah, Kingdra is something I've been getting really back into Masters big time, and Kingdra's been somewhat heavily featured because it just got a sync grid and there's a whole bunch of dragon type events that are going on and stuff like that. So it's a line that's very close to my everyday consciousness
Wallet?
at this point. I don't want to talk about that. Number 216 is Teddiursa, which is a really cute Pokemon. It's like the slightest bit forgettable, but it is definitely cute. It feels like in Gen 1, a lot of times, there are some pink Pokemon, but it doesn't feel like they ever really went super hard out of their way to be like, we need this Pokemon to be cute, and we need everybody to love it. And there's like some exceptions where like obviously Eevee was designed to be like a very cute Pokemon, but Teddiursa is one of those things where we're like, it's gonna be cute, damn it, and everybody's gonna love it, and it was like it clearly has those design values in mind. Number 316, and listen, I love Hoenn, I do, but Gulpin, like I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's like it exists.
Yeah.
It's not. I'd be very surprised. Actually, I know Toller Web likes Sculpin and Swalot. But like beyond that, I would be hard pressed to like find someone who actively enjoys Sculpin and Swalot.
The active enjoyment of Gulpin and Swalot. I know it's
most of the time it's just kind of like you acknowledge its existence on the off chance that you remember it or encounter it, and then you move on.
Yeah, pretty much. It was also in, I don't know which Smash. I want to say it was in Brawl.
I'm pretty sure it's in Brawl as a Pokeball, yeah.
Where it eats you and
yeah.
It's a little bit nightmare fuel, but number 416 is Vespiquen, which I have appreciated a little bit more lately, but it was a Pokemon that I always hated because I thought it was bad. And like acquiring it was annoying, but I don't hate it so much as I used to. I think it's kind of a cool design.
I think it's really cool, yeah. I'm a big fan of the design. I like its like signature moves. I think they're really well done. I think it's like it looks cool. It's terrible, but
Yeah, it always has been.
The aesthetic is good.
Always will be.
Yeah.
Number 516, and thank God we're finally finished with this. There was a month and a half of pure and unadulterated
it's over.
torture.
We made it.
We
did it.
Is Simipour, which is arguably the worst of the 6.
I fully agree. It's so ugly.
But I just like I don't know how that made it through like quality assurance.
Yeah, like Simisage and Simisear are fine, and they got to Simipour, and
they were
said,
like,
let's give him like really bad dreadlocks and make him like a complete dope.
Yeah.
And someone was like, yeah, I agree.
Is that the one where its lips look like it's pursed, right? Like
I think
like
so,
all the
yeah.
time. Like we need to personify like the move water gun, or monkify the move water gun. Anyway, we're done with monkeys, and we never have to do it again. Until our next 100 episodes. But anyway, 616 this week is Shelmet, which in and of itself is not cool, but I feel like the interactions between like Shelmet and Karrablast with the trade, the way that they trade and evolve is like is really cool. Where Karrablast like puts on Shelmet's armor and becomes.
It's very easy to think that Shelmet would evolve into Escavalier.
I think that's what they want you to think.
Right,
Yeah.
and then Karrablast into Excelgor could make sense. So
right.
They definitely like mixed the aesthetics really well.
Yeah, it's neat. It's really cool. 716 our Gen 6.
This is a trigger warning.
Representative. Yeah, it's a very brief trigger warning. Is Xerneas. I don't know. Its reputation kind of precedes it at this point. I don't really know how much we can talk about it, but let's just assume that it hasn't terrorized 2 formats the last 2 times.
I actually really like the concept.
Aesthetically, it's cool, right?
Yeah, like the idea that like because Yveltal represents death and Xerneas represents life.
Yeah, it's just really
the concept of geomancy is neat too. Like you use the power of the earth to power yourself up, and like it's fun.
Yeah, it is.
I wish it didn't exist.
It's just really hard to appreciate it at that level after what it's put me through. One thing I didn't realize this until somewhat recently, that technically Xerneas has 2 forms, and yeah, it does, and because it looks a little bit different. Like if you go into your menu, it's not like its antlers aren't rainbowy, but so it's like antlers like turn on when it's in battle and when it's not. So technically it has 2 forms, but you only ever see it in a single form in battle.
Oh, I mean, that might just be a difference between a menu sprite and an in-battle
No,
model,
because
too.
it actually has like two different. I'm pretty sure it like canonically has two forms. Like they're called two different
Okay.
things.
That's fun.
I'm gonna have to do a little bit more research on that. Sarah B on it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last one of the week, as we make our way through starters in the Galar region, is none other than Sobble. And
Sobble was my favorite of the three. I picked Sobble when I played through Shield, and I really like it. I think it's cute.
Mhm.
And then once it evolved, I was like, oh, okay, I mean, that's fine, I guess. And then it evolved again, and I got over it. Like,
Yeah,
I've seen better.
Inteleon is. I mean, like I appreciate what they were going for. It's just like I don't like it personally.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not bad. There are absolutely worse starters that exist. I'm not gonna call them out right now, but it's I put it like a solid C. I think maybe like a D.
Yeah,
but like D plus C minus. How about that?
And then it's Gigantamax. It just has a gun.
That is cool. Like I'm a fan of that.
It just has a gun.
Yeah.
Okay, and just very briefly, apparently they're not forms, they're modes. According to Cerebi, it has a neutral mode and an active mode, and it is purely aesthetic. So there you go.
Good to know.
Good to know. All right, so that wraps up our 16s. Of course, join us in 2 weeks for the 17s, when we unfortunately have to talk about Drizzile. But we get to move on to some more exciting Pokemon in some of the other respects, so that's cool. All right, let's get to the ladder.
Let's do it.
And I'm just going to preface this with saying that there's a lot of Vanillix on the ladder right now was my takeaway in selecting, and I think I was.
Which makes sense because the day we're recording, there's a pretty big snowstorm in the U.S. So
Yeah, you
I'm
said
not sure that's
you're getting snow even in Texas, right?
Well, I
sleet.
think there was some ice, like sleet, in Dallas, but there's a lot of snow in Oklahoma, just up the road.
Yeah, we're supposed to get. There's a winter weather advisory for the commute tomorrow morning, so that will be a lot of fun. But anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of Vanillix going around right now, so keep that in mind as we run through. And I think I pulled the 10 teams from 17 or something like
Not
that.
bad.
So pretty good. Definitely, some people are continuing to hide, and it's possible that some of the hidden accounts were like left over from decaying after the regionals or other local tournaments. But anyway, the first on our ladder this week is some good stuffy looking stuff with Duraludon, Whimsicott, Dracovish, Sylveon, Rotom Heat, and Snorlax.
We haven't seen Dracovish in a while.
That was kind
like
of my one
very
thing.
much like a week one thing.
It was a flavor
Then it
of
went
the
away.
week after like Wolf took it viral.
Yeah, Wolf and Alpharad, the best YouTuber.
Yep. And then since then, it's kind of like been relegated to the niche that it kind of deserves to be in my opinion.
Right, and it's still like super strong. Like Fishious Rend is nothing
damage.
nothing to joke about. But like as soon as you have like a Gastrodon on the field, Dracovish just like screams in terror.
Right, and
or like
when stuff like Gigantamax Togekiss is around, like
you
don't get to do anything against that.
If you ever are not clicking Fishious Rend,
Gyarados.
then you're like almost worthless.
Right, yeah, pretty much. And plenty of teams, like it's just an easy Pokemon to like team build like checks for.
Yeah.
So anyway, cool Pokemon and like definitely scary, but whether or not it's good, I think is really being brought into question as its usage kind of drops off a little bit here. The next team on the ladder here is Braviary, Aegislash, Hydreigon, Goodra, Mimikyu, and Arcanine. So Aegislash Hydreigon is harkening back to like 2015.
That was the first thing that jumped out to me too. I think that's really cool. This team is neat. Like it's got some stuff we haven't really seen much of yet.
Yep.
Like specifically that Aegislash, Hydreigon, and Goodra.
Yeah.
And the other three are pretty cool. Like Braviary kind of took a nosedive, but I still think it has
its
potential.
niche.
It's not like a terrible mon.
Yeah, I think Aegislash is a lot better than it gets credit for too.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, people they saw the Aegislash nerfs and started crying, and I am one of those people.
Yep.
So that probably has held people back from trying it out so far, but it certainly is, still a usable Pokemon.
Definitely, and I think Goodra. I don't know if Justin mentioned it, but it was definitely a Pokemon that was featured kind of heavily in all of the media that Aaron Traylor put out for the team, and I'm sure Wolf mentioned it as well. as being a Pokemon that was like kind of a hard stop to the team that won Dallas. So I think we're going to start to see that a little bit more as well. It is like scary with both. Like I've seen an Assault Vest one be incredibly scary, and of course it can run weakness policy just like everything else that wants to Dynamax.
Yeah.
And it gets Max Ooze, which it's like there are very few good users of it. So it definitely is like can be a scary Pokemon if you're not packing like ways to check it. But Togekiss does that pretty well, so everything will be okay. The next team on the ladder, Mimikyu, Whimsicott, Inteleon, Duraludon, Conkeldurr, and our first Vanillix of the week. I told you it was coming.
Yeah. This is kind of neat. It's got the Trick Room mode. I think Conkeldurr is really cool. I like the Inteleon with Vanillix. If that isn't Blizzard Inteleon, I'll eat a shoe.
Yeah, it definitely is, yeah.
Yeah. It's neat. It's fun. I think Inteleon is kind of popping up as like a really fast, just like decent damage output mon on some of these teams like this that want more immediate speed.
Yeah, and I think on this one, it has like more of an offensive role given that you see Vanillix there, but Inteleon's also, it doesn't look like it's present on this team, but it does learn Ice Shard and runs it to like self-proc weakness policy.
Inteleon learns Ice Shard?
It sure does. Which is also something that Vanillix does. Yeah, it has like a million moves because it's a secret agent. It's like Inspector Gadget.
Oh,
yeah.
That's funny.
So yeah, it does do that. Not on this team, but it does.
Yeah.
The next team on the ladder is Togekiss, Conkeldurr, Roserade, Vanillix, Dusclops, and Rhyperior. So some common cores, but also there's a Roserade there.
I want to know what it does.
I mean, it just does the same thing that it always does, except it no longer has Technician Hidden Power.
Yeah. I know, probably Sleep Powder,
right,
I would imagine. Leaf Storm's pretty strong. Like Sludge Bomb is never a bad move. Sludge Bomb is one of those moves that's like sneakily really good.
Yeah.
Like it's got a really good base power. It's like 30% poison chance is really annoying.
It's 100%.
Yeah,
Sludge Bomb always will poison.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. Sludge Bomb has always been like a really good move that people just don't really talk about. So I don't know. Roserade's cool. It's like somewhat fast with this meta in mind.
And it's also like
80...
kind of bulky too. Doesn't it have like really high special defense?
Yeah, it's up there. So yeah, kind of neat. I'm interested to see like what set it is, but obviously we don't really have that information.
Yeah, and in a format lacking grass types, I mean, you can obviously look to worse places than Roserade. So
right,
I'm fine with that. The next team here, Tyranitar, Gyarados, Rotom-Mow, Duraludon, Grimmsnarl, and Arcanine.
This is cool.
Yeah, this is like very good stuffy. I think Duraludon, Grimmsnarl, and Whimsicott Grimmsnarl are both like very scary combinations right now.
Whimsicott Duraludon.
What did I say? Whimsicott Grimmsnarl?
Yeah.
You knew it.
No, I agree. Fake Tears Duraludon is scary. Fake Tears
terrifying.
with like Leaf Storm Rotom is really cool too. And like a lot of these Pokemon have like the exact speed tier you would want to take advantage of Thunder Wave. Like Gyarados, Rotom, Duraludon all kind of sit around the same area, and that's pretty perfect for paralysis speed control. So that makes sense. You know, this team has a bunch of things that can do damage next to Grimmsnarl, which is really good at facilitating.
Yeah, it's a good Pokemon. I think Fake Tears was like almost a necessary meta shift for it to continue to be good, because I think screens was like, okay, but like if you're running 2 screens, Fake Out and Thunder Wave, like you're not really maximizing, the slot, in my opinion.
Agreed.
6th team on the ladder for us this week is another very good stuff. So this is like a day one looking team to me, with Togekiss, Arcanine, Rotom Wash, Tyranitar, Excadrill, and Snorlax.
I was talking to Luke Curtali, Dog, the other day about Snorlax, and he asked me what I thought about it, and I kind of feel like Snorlax has a hard time getting going in this meta. But like a team like this, that's pretty good stuff. You have like Rotom that can burn stuff. You have Arcanine that can burn stuff with and Intimidate, and you have Togekiss that can redirect. Assuming it's that kind of set. I don't know if it is on this team, but like a team like this, I think is one that Snorlax might find some more success on, because it might have more opportunities to get going. You can even like pressure things with Excadrill or T-Tar while Snorlax is next to you and kind of force like you either take a knockout on Excadrill or Snorlax, but you really can't stop both from doing their thing.
Right, definitely.
That's kind of cool. I like it.
I feel like Snorlax. I feel like people are forcing the belly drum set. I think that like Curse Snorlax is actually really good. because it allows you. I think one of the things that at least early in the format was a little scary about Snorlax is that there was so much hard trick room running around that Snorlax was like not always the slowest thing.
Right.
And in formats past, like it's like slapping a Moongus onto your team or slapping Snorlax onto your team, where you have that, and all of a sudden, like your team handles Trick Room at least passably, and it's not necessarily doing that anymore with some of the things that like to be in Trick Room. And
it also requires less support. It's like Curse Snorlax.
Right,
Curse Snorlax is slightly more
it's a little more self-sufficient. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good set. I used it a little bit on some team earlier in the format. I ended up scrapping, but came away thinking that Curse Snorlax was better than it's getting credit for.
Yeah.
The next team on the ladder is a team of Rotom Wash, Grimmsnarl, Gothitelle, Passimian, Chandelure, and Vanillux. So definitely a unique combination 6, but all Pokemon that we're at least somewhat used to seeing at this point.
Yeah, it's like this is a team I would see and like be scared of because I wouldn't really know what to expect.
Passimian
My
is
first
scary.
thought would be like, yeah, Passimian's like weirdly scary.
Yep.
My first thought would be like Grimmsnarl is probably fake tears again because you have Rotom, Chandelure, Vanillux. Gothitelle, I couldn't predict a Gothitelle set on this team. I don't think.
It's running a lot of different moves too.
Yeah, it's neat though. Like it has a lot of things that you have to account for all at once. Which, I mean, if you catch like a bad lead when you're playing against this team, like you're probably just out.
Yeah, you'll just get gunned down by Passimian or something like that. Yeah. The next team, number 8 on the ladder, is a team of Whimsicott, Arcanine, Tyranitar, Togekiss, Hydreigon, and Jolteon. Jolteon is on this team.
I don't know what it does on this team, but it's there.
I can't imagine that it even has like a positive Togekiss matchup.
It really might not.
Yeah.
Especially weakness policy.
Yeah, like I don't understand it. I mean, like it's not. This is not a format that is like plagued by bulky waters.
Or like electric types that you can
like,
volt absorb onto.
I don't understand it at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably like its speed is its main selling point. I'm sure. Like fast things are. It's hard for something that fast to be bad.
I mean, it's like you're faster than everything except Dragapult, but there's not anything that like sits in and around its speed tier anymore.
No, but I mean that's kind of a good thing for it. Like it can go modest, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was also something that was classically very dependent on Hidden Power Ice for any sort of coverage.
Yeah.
And now that that's gone, it's just got like
its next best option is
Shadow Ball?
Shadow Ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it pick up anything in the generation shift?
Did Eevee get Weather Ball?
Oh.
I seem to think it might have.
I know that Glaceon has Weather Ball, but I wasn't sure if that was exclusive to it.
I think Eevee might have gotten it itself.
Oh.
So maybe Jolteon does. I don't know. We'll see.
It still has Pin Missile.
Double kick.
Picked up Payday.
Ew.
It learns. Yes, it does. It does have Weather Ball.
Okay.
So that at least gives it like a shot at coverage. Although I'm not sure like where that team is generating it, other than
you can get Rock type with
Tyranitar. Yeah. It learns Fake Tears.
Oh, that's true.
And then of course it has Shadow Ball, and that's pretty much it.
Anyway.
I mean, I was curious. I was hoping that I would stumble across something that would be like, oh, but no.
Right.
No, we're not there. The next team, number 9 on the ladder this week, is Togedemaru, Inteleon, Vanillix. So that combination again: Hydreigon, Mimikyu, and Braviary.
That's kind of fun. Again, like Hydreigon's kind of popping up here, which is neat. I think it's a good Pokemon. I keep harping on speed, but like that's actually a really good speed tier for
it's
this
fast
meta,
in this
around
format,
like 100.
yeah.
So it's also something that can like somewhat reliably take hits from Charizard. Like not really max airstream, but like a fire resist that has some semblance of bulk is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially if it can pack a punch itself. So
it's a good max user too, because it
synergizes
so well with Max Darkness.
Yeah.
And obviously Max Wormwind is good. And if you run U-turn, you can even have Max Flutterby. Wow.
You could run Snarl Hydreigon.
Wow. You could, yeah. But why would you do that when you can have Max Flutterby?
That was the joke.
Yeah. I was joking about your joke. But...
Brendan, that was the joke.
Okay. Also, I think Togedemaru is kind of good and being slept on the slightest bit.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's a hard check to Jolteon. So if you're and then the last team on the ladder this week is a team of these first two are a pair after Jake's own heart: Tyranitar, Gothitelle, Excadrill, Dragapult, Milotic, and Togekiss.
The Milotic too. That's half my world's team. Oh.
Your children.
Love it. This is cool though. I like this. I've always been a fan of Milotic ever since we kind of like discovered the Moringa set back in 2015. So I've been a supporter of it. And I think it works on a team like this that has like T-Tower, Excadrill, Milotic. That's always been a solid combo. I think Ryan Tan top baited Dallas with that in 2018. And Togekiss, actually he might have had Togekiss too.
Well, that was before Togekiss Mania. Before Togekiss was like almost a necessity in your team building.
Right, yeah. No, this is cool. I like it. It's kind of like a standard Goth T-Tar team, I would say, but looks neat.
All right, so that's all 10 of the ladder. Again, I think that was 17, so 17 out of 17 teams. So some interesting stuff there. It's always cool to look at the ladder because I think sometimes we see some stuff that pops up a little bit before it shows up in live tournaments. So you're welcome for that. We're going to go through a couple of the recent online tournaments that happen. I think we've got a Galar friendly and then 2 tournaments from Rose Tower, which is recently started a pretty popular and successful online circuit. So we'll talk about some of those teams as well in lieu of doing some of the local live tournaments.
Yeah.
So this Galar friendly that we're looking at was Galar friendly number 7, which was 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Yeah,
it was 2 weekends ago. So I'm glad I got to mention Togedemaru because it was actually Togedemaru and Hydreigon, Jake. So we're coming out smelling like roses. Yeah. Both Pokemon were on the winning team alongside Arcanine, Togekiss, Conkeldurr, and Jellicent, and I like that team quite a bit. I like that team.
I do too. That's really neat. It's funny that we were just talking about these two, like you said, but I do think this looks like a team that something like Hydreigon would thrive on. It's got some good synergy with Togekiss for sure. Togedemaru can help it out with like Fake Out and like maybe like Nuzzle if it has that. And then again, it has like the Trick Room mode with Conkeldurr, which I think is super strong. Aaron showed us that Jellicent Conkeldurr is a really cool combo in Dallas, so not surprised to see that doing well again. It's a neat team. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Some of the other teams, as we will, touch on some of the teams in top 8. The runner-up team is 123E45, who's been running this team, I believe, since day 1 or like some variant of it. I think that Gothitelle is a little bit new, but he's been running like Babiri, Mimikyu with Rotom Heat and Excadrill and Hydreigon since like the beginning of the first day, and he took this team online, and I battled him a bunch of times. But he's had pretty good results over the course of the season, so this is not anomalous by any chance. And we talked a little bit towards the end of Ultra Series about how strong players that are using their quote unquote their team can be. So definitely something to watch for there. In top 4, there's a Rillaboom, which is a cool Pokemon. Obviously, we've been talking forever about how it's going to be way better that it gets when it gets Grassy Surge. If it gets Grassy Surge, I guess we should qualify a little bit better.
Yeah.
But it still has a pretty neat support move pool, and in a format with a dearth of usable grass types, it can find its way onto teams.
Drum Baiting is a really cool move too.
It is, yeah.
Significant damage that does. That also lowers speed. I think it doesn't take much investment at all to just 2-hit KO Excadrill with Drum Beating, just for reference as to how much damage it can do. So I'm a fan, especially once it gets Grassy Surge. That calc is without Grassy Terrain too.
Right. And Woodhammer can still kick you in the teeth too if you're not careful. It's like a really high base power move.
Yeah.
The 4th place team is a pretty. I'm pretty sure I've even seen this combination of Pokemon before with. Mimikyu, Gastrodon, Tyranitar, Arcanine, Rotom, Mo, and Dragapult. Obviously, it's just a whole bunch of really good Pokemon. It's a good stuff team. It kind of resembles Edu's team, I think, but without Ferrothorn, so it's an improvement in that regard. We've got some neat stuff that's kind of sitting in top 8. There's a Clefable on the 5th place team, and I think we'll be seeing that in a couple weeks a little bit more when Home is released, except not Clefable, Clefairy.
Yeah.
And that looks like that's a Trick Room team there with Sylveon, Chandelure, Tyranitar, Conkeldurr, and Dusclops. A lot of pretty slow Pokemon there.
Yeah.
There seems to be a Cinderace in cut of just about every Galar friendly. Like I don't know why it is, but
somewhere.
Like it hasn't shown up anywhere else other than the Galar friendlies. But it is on a team alongside Mudsdale, Whimsicott. There might be some beat up stuff there. Vanillux, Milotic, and then this Pokemon has seen some niche usage. Haxorus, which is a little interesting, and also something that's close to my consciousness because of Masters lately. So, some of those Dragon-type Pokemon. The Dallas winning team is the 7th place team, and then the 8th place team, is that the same 6 as the one that's up above?
No, there's a Dragapult instead of the Togekiss, but otherwise, yes.
Oh, okay. So another good stuffs team in top 8.
Yeah.
So there's always some neat stuff that comes out of this, and then I do want to just touch on the 9th place team here. Because
Speaking of Jolteon,
there is a Jolteon.
It's like not even. Well, I don't know if it. Would you call Jolteon weirder than Gallade or Serena? I was gonna say it's like not even the weirdest thing on this team.
It's hard for me to call Serena weird after just coming off of Ultra, where it like definitely had niche usage.
Yeah.
I haven't like detoxed from Serena yet. I guess is the way to say it. I think Gallade is actually like kind of a cool Pokemon. Like even in this format, I'm not just like saying I think it's cool. I think it's good because it sets Trick Room and it's a fighting type, which are both like important niches in this format. I think it was a little bit better when everybody was running Tyranitar Excadrill.
Right.
So it might have lost a little bit in that regard, but I think it is a neat Trick Room setter. And also this team probably is using it for Justified Beat Up, which it can also do. You wouldn't catch me doing that, but it can.
It is a possibility.
It sure can.
All right, so moving on to the Rose Tower. Let's look at the Rose Tower Open first. The first Open of their circuit. I believe it's meant to be like larger than their like weekly clashes. This one was won by Lucamere, Jeremy. I'm totally blanking on his last name. Ramirez. Justin Ramirez.
Yep.
Oh my God, I tried. Sorry, Justin.
It's okay, I got you there.
But he won with a pretty cool team. It's a kind of a variation on Durant. So it's Durant, Arcanine, Milotic, Tyranitar, Gothitelle, and Sylveon. So another Milotic, Tyranitar, Gothitelle.
I'm pretty sure a report for this team just went up.
There is, yeah.
Did he write one like 2 days ago? It came out or something like that?
Yeah, it was on Victory Road. It came out in the last couple days or so. Not Victory Road, Trainer Tower.
Trainer Tower, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Durant's neat. We saw Bingsley do really well with it. It's like entirely terrifying.
Yep. And scarily enough, people are still exploring ways to enable it. So
right, like I guess the most common thing we've seen with is Whimsicott, but there's no Whimsicott on this team, and clearly it still did well. So
yep. And then let's see, what do they have? 16 teams up here. We can touch on some of the highlights, I guess. There is another version of Aaron's Dallas winning team in top 4. And then another, Jellicent Togekiss combination in top 4 there with that looks a lot more good stuffy. I think Jellicent Tyranitar is a really popular combination right now.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
Is kind of like Conkeldurr in the sense that you can use it as a Trick Room mode, or at least be able to function in Trick Room with that pairing. And then you see it alongside like Arcanine and Rotom Cut a lot. That seems like kind of a core. There's a Fire, Water, Grass, and then Tyranitar. And the rest of the team kind of makes itself with Excadrill and Togekiss. Right. So that's like if you did one of those things where you like put all the teams in the format into a bot and asked for a team, like you might get that. But obviously it's
I forced a bot to watch 1,000 hours of VGC 20. And
I wasn't sure if I could make that joke and it would be understood. But thank you for going there.
Yeah. There's kind of a fun team with Vanillux Ice-Q in top 16.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
Yeah.
Vanillux Ice-Q and Inteleon, so there's a lot of ice-related shenanigans going on there. I mean, Ice-Q will still just kind of like run through you if you play dumb around it, or if you don't know what it does, or any number of things that could facilitate Ice-Q sweeps. But yeah, that's kind of scary. I talked a little bit about it earlier, but Fevzi's got a solo Inteleon team there in top 8. And he does have a Togekiss, so I wouldn't be shocked if there's some Ice Shard weakness policy stuff there, which it does do. Let's see, as we go through here, the 16th place team is a team.
Colossal.
Yeah,
that's another side weakness policy team, I'm sure, with like Surf Dragapult.
Yeah, but it also has like Male and DD.
Yeah, I was going to say that's actually male. That's definitely not
and some
female.
other kind of wild stuff going on there. I think Colossal's actually like sort of good, and its Gigantamax is going to like put it over the top, but we'll see about that. Other than that, there's everything else is pretty close to the meta in this top cut. There's some Butterfree Charizard stuff going on. There's a Ludicolo. But unlike the Galar friendlies, these teams seem to stick a little bit closer to the metagame. There's no Cinderace. I regret to inform you. But always good to look at this stuff. I think they've had increasing numbers, and there's some really good players in the cut that I'm just looking at now. Jory and Viper, River Davis, Fevzi. So all these guys, obviously Lucamere, who won the tournament. So there's some really good players playing in these tournaments. So we definitely want to continue to look at what's going on in these tournaments. And we're going to go ahead and jump over to the Clash now, Jake, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. Speaking of Viper doing well in tournaments.
And speaking of good players, the finals were Viper and Billa, so there you go. If you were looking for something to legitimize these results, that might do it. And both of them are running pretty meta teams. It looks like Billa's running some very hard Trick Room stuff. Oh, that's the Gravnosis team.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad I was able to identify that. That stuff is scary. And then there's another Unreality team in top 4, which is surprisingly continuing to get placements, despite the fact that Aaron was like, "Hey, if you guys want to know how to beat my team, here you go." Like, it's built directly into his report.
Right. I wonder if that was like an attempt to get people to not use the team after.
I don't know, but it's definitely still getting results as far as we've seen.
Mm-hmm. Other neat stuff. There's a Vikavolt in top 8.
Trick Room Vikavolt, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of fun. Well, I think the last time I saw Vikavolt was Sam top 4ing Dallas with it back in like 2017.
Yeah, Vikavolt's a grass type, so that's good. It learns Energy Ball.
Okay.
It's like a grass type in the same sense that Gyarados is a grass type,
True. Yeah. Learning a grass type move is the one prerequisite for being.
That's all
a grass
it takes.
Type.
That's all it takes.
There's another version of the Bokum hard Trick Room team in top 16 as well. Mm-hmm. There's actually kind of a decent number of hard Trick Room teams. I was just looking at it.
There's a bunch of Trick Room. Yep.
Yeah. There's more. There's like multiple Butterfree plus Trick Room setter teams. Mm-hmm. There's like solo Dusclops as Trick Room setter, but like the rest of the team isn't hard Trick Room in top 16.
Yeah,
on Jamon's team.
I remember looking at that and thinking that it was kind of interesting. But I mean, Dusclops a good enough Pokemon in its own right. Like it can do damage with Pain Split.
Yeah.
It can reverse Trick Room if you want to go that route.
Right. It can spread burns, which is
a lot
valuable.
of things it can. Yeah, definitely, especially in this format. A lot of things it can do. There's a couple of Durant rounding out top 16 there, which is always going to be a scary thing. And like I said, it's on 2 different teams, which is the scariest aspect of that. So if anybody unlocks like Durant Exodia, like the format's over.
It's all gone.
We'll just pack it in, pack it up.
Yeah.
And the other interesting team to me there is Aldrich Jan is running a team of with Inteleon and Goodra, which are kind of 2 of like the counter meta picks right now, I would say.
Right.
And he's kind of like yeeted them both onto the same team. And I think there's also like some Ice Shard weakness policy potential on both Togekiss and I keep talking about that because I've been rolled by it so many times in ladder. So look out for that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so that's going to wrap up our metagame coverage for this episode. So we're going to take just a short break, and in a few seconds we will be back with Jen to get into the second half of our show this week, where we can talk about tournament logistics, tournament organizing, and like I said, we've already recorded that, and it was really phenomenal to get to speak to Jen about a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely.
So stay tuned. We will be right back with the third person. And welcome back, listeners, and thanks for staying with us through this lovely music break that Jake's puts in every week. Jake and I are back, and we are now joined by our celebrity guest this week, Jen Badamo, who is with us and is on our show this week, or this bye-week, to talk about tournament organization and things in her sort of wheelhouse there, and we're really excited to have her on. So, Jen, welcome to our show.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
And now we'll pause for station identification. Jake, do you want to talk about Jen's credentials here? I know usually you have like an encyclopedic knowledge of tournament finishes, but I think you're going to have to go in a different direction.
Well, Jen has won 3 regionals, top 4 more.
I mean, I do have regionals finishes, so I'd be impressed if you know them.
I definitely do not.
Aren't they? Are they in TCG?
They are.
See,
Oh,
I could
fun.
have. Well, I got that far. That's it.
Jen is one of the most well-known and prolific and well-liked tournament organizers in the scene. Tournament staffer extraordinaire. She's been like head judge of multiple regionals and worked at every level of tournament under the sun. So, if there's anyone that knows anything about running tournaments at any level, at any sort, it is certainly Jen. So we're very happy to have you on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Do you want to tell us what your regionals finishes are? I'm really curious now.
So many moons ago, I played in the last Rhode Island regionals in TCG.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in TCG. Yeah. And so I was running some kind of Gothitelle, Gardevoir, lock deck, something crazy like that, because that was totally my wheelhouse. And my only losses that day were like auto losses to decks that were built basically to destroy my deck. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up, at that point, there was no like day 2 TCG. And I think it was still single Swiss. So I ended up top 32. I was like 27th coming out of Swiss. I didn't have to look it up. It's still online somewhere. But anyway, I think it was 27th coming out of Swiss. And of course, my matchup was against one of my auto losses during Swiss. I think his name was Nick Cimento. He's from upstate New York, and I don't remember what he was playing, but I just remember it just really destroyed mine. So I went to sleep that night knowing that the next day I was playing cut, top 32 cut, and basically losing. But I was really stoked because it was like my first cut. I was the only woman in top cut, which was really awesome.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that is awesome.
And I ended up meeting some really cool people because of it, and became friends with Jimmy O'Brien, who's a really popular and prolific TCG player from New Jersey, and he ended up writing like a write-up on PokeGym at that point. So that was really cool. And that was like the highlight of my career up until then. So I think it may have been 2013, 2012. It was somewhere around there. I just don't remember. My brain is not functional.
A little piece of trivia, since you mentioned the tournament. Do you know who the reigning video game Rhode Island Regional Championship
Of course I do. It's
okay, I was hoping you would know. I always think that's a nice bit of trivia. I feel like he mentions it often enough on Twitter that most people should know, but it's one of those little things that's funny.
Yeah, definitely remember that that's Chuba Cross. I probably would be shunned out of my community if I didn't know this.
All right, so let's jump into some of our interview questions here. So we want to go all the way back to kind of the beginning of your tournament organizing days, and what kind of like made you want to run tournaments, and how did you get there, and then why do you still do it today?
So it's a really funny story. So this is back when I was still playing TCG. I was bringing. So I have a son, Ian, who's now, oh my God, he's going to be 16.
Is he really?
In October. Yeah, I hate admitting that, but yeah, I have a 16-year-old or almost 16-year-old. Mm-hmm. So back when he was younger, I'm a single mom, and having a boy, it was kind of like, what am I going to do to connect with my child? And I've always been like a gamer. I grew up playing video games, watching my brother play video games. So it was like, well, this is easy. I'll just play Pokemon. I'll bring him back to Pokemon. So we started going to like local leagues and stuff, and that's how we got into playing and going to tournaments. But that year, I wanted to go to the Professor tournament at Nationals. This is 2013, so we were going just to go spectate, play, that kind of stuff. And so it was like, well, I can't actually play in the Professor tournament without like organizing or judging tournaments. So I ended up doing a couple of local pre-releases and like cities and battle roads at that point or something. So I started off as a TCG judge, and I ended up going to Nationals, cutting that tournament 6-2. And again, losing to a deck that was built to beat mine. I volunteered at nationals that year, giving out, taking in deck lists, doing deck checks, and then giving out prizes for that stuff. So I have a background in TCG. And then the following year, I believe, my brain, like I said, it just doesn't remember things properly. It was either the following year or that year was the pilot for VGC Premier Challenges. And
okay.
I was...
That was 2014, I believe.
So then, so then I'm right. Awesome. So 2014, I get an email from TPCI saying that, hey, congratulations, you're going to be part of our VGC pilot program to run these Premier Challenges. And I was just like, okay, cool. Like, no idea why I'm getting selected, but fun. Like, this is great. So at the time, I was running tournaments with Bob Mirabile out in Long Island. He was also part of the pilot program. And so we ran, I think, like 1 or 2 Premier Challenges before Nationals 2014, which I didn't get to attend. And then the following cycle, so that fall, I realized that, the player base is largely in New Jersey and Manhattan and like Brooklyn. And it's really cost prohibitive for them to travel out to Long Island because the Long Island Railroad is ridiculously expensive. So I started looking for a better place to organize tournaments, and that's how I ended up in Brooklyn at King's Games. So that's kind of the history of where I started.
So at this point, what keeps you going? And I don't know if we... Like, you took a brief hiatus, and you can feel free to talk about that if you want. But what brought you back and keeps you going now?
So I did take a hiatus, and I've been. It really depends on where you know me or where you interact with me. But I've been pretty open on my hiatus. So the people that need to know what happened. But it's basically like I burned myself out. I wasn't too thrilled with how things were running at that point. And it was just time. It was time for me to step away and and kind of reevaluate where I wanted to be, like personally, professionally, and then like reevaluate my position in the community because I felt, I had done so many things and I had taken on so much on myself. It ended up becoming extremely taxing, and I just felt like, I wasn't sure if that's where I needed to be at that point, So I took a break for about a year, and I kept in touch with most of my friends, but I kind of like lost touch with like a large number of people and the community, the community itself, and kind of I tried to keep up to date, but not really insert myself and just kind of tangentially keep an eye on what's going on. I went to Worlds, obviously the year that I took a break because I wanted to see my friends, and then I went to Worlds this past year in DC, and really quickly, DC Worlds, the first DC Worlds was my first Worlds experience. I went to spectate. I had a blast. I love DC as a city. And it was such a fun time that when DC came back around, I was like, there's no question. I'm absolutely going. So I made the mistake, not mistake, but I like kind of crazily drove myself down by myself to DC, and then back up to New York for a family wedding on Friday, and then back down to DC Saturday morning. So I ended up driving, oh my God, it's more than like 24 hours in the span of a week by myself. It was pretty bad. Way too much energy drinks and trying desperately not to stop.
I was wondering because I was like, I mean, I drove down too, Jen, but like I didn't realize you drove back and then back again.
Yeah, I was really like, I don't know, just asking for trouble at that point.
Yeah, that's a lot of driving.
I drove way too fast. I like driving fast, but like I drove way too fast. Surprised that I didn't get like pulled over. I'm knocking on wood here so I don't jinx myself for any time soon.
They're gonna come for you.
Right? I definitely have that karma coming to me. But anyway, like to get to the point, I tend to talk around the point. To get to the point, I spent a lot of time with my judge friends at Worlds this year, as opposed to last year when I spent a lot of times with like my player friends. And I got to listen to their experiences and like things that happened and how they ruled on things and what was going on at the time. And I realized like, I still know what I'm talking about. I still, I still have it. And B, I still have a drive to, to contribute and to kind of be a part of it and make a difference, and I felt like the year that I was away, there was a piece missing. Like there wasn't that much, interaction between the judges and the community like what I used to do. Not saying that it wasn't there, because it absolutely was there, but I always felt like it was my role, or at least what I took upon myself as what I wanted to do, was to kind of be an intermediary between the organizers and the players. So at least there could be like common ground. And I kind of felt like that was missing, based on the experiences I heard about at Worlds. And so on my long drive back home, I kind of was, toying with the idea of, well, what would it look like if I decided to come back? And I think by that point I already had, admitted to myself this was happening. But I just needed to like talk it through. And I talked to some judges, I talked to players, I talked to Tommy Coolene, who said, yeah, I always knew this was happening.
I think we all kind of knew a little bit.
I think the only person that didn't know was me, to be quite frank. Like I walked away and really like thought that was it. Like I was walking away and I was going to find something else to do. And I didn't, and I realized that this is really where I wanted to be. I really love organizing. I really love judging, and I love this community, even through its faults and its warts and all, So that's the story.
I believe it's not an exaggeration to say that we're all very happy that you're back. So
thank you. I mean,
happy that you like took your break and found what you needed to find, and then came back to us, because we all love you.
Welcome back, Chet.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into some of the more like nitty gritty details of actually running tournaments. So obviously, like to have a tournament, there has to be the person organizing it, the TO, which is your main job, especially like at locals in like the New York, New Jersey area. But obviously there also has to be a lot more people than that. So kind of walk us through what kind of positions there have to be filled for each tournament.
So it really depends. And I actually, a couple years ago, I sat down and kind of wrote like my manifesto on, and this is going to sound like really, really like ego driven, but there was really no document that kind of laid all of that out. I've never published it. I kept it to myself. But it was kind of like, here's how I think this stuff is broken down, or how my experience of how this stuff is broken down. And it really differs based on the level of event. So like your local events, you really only need the tournament organizer, because at most you may deal with like minor issues. And if you deal with, DQ level offenses, the tournament organizer should be able to to handle those things. So the tournament organizer typically at like the premier challenge level handles everything soup to nuts. They handle, entering things into the software, the tournament organizer software, which we affectionately call Tom, or maybe not affectionately sometimes.
We call it something.
Especially when it pairs you up against that person that you don't want to face round one.
Back-to-back pair downs.
Right, those two. So you can blame that all on Tom. We have no control over that. But yeah, so like the local level, the person handles everything soup to nuts. They judge their tournament. They handle the tournament operations side of it. And sometimes that person is an independent person. Sometimes they are affiliated with a league. And it really, it depends on regions. Like here, it's mostly independent organizers who are, sanctioned to run VGC events. Some other places, it's organizers who are also like TCG organizers and own a league and have all that other stuff. So that kind of runs the gamut, really. But then you get to mid-seasons, and I mean, in years past, mid-seasons, I would say, the same, because mid-seasons last year, were anemic in terms of attendance because, for various reasons. But when you have like big formats like this one, and I think the beginning of 2016, I want to say, and the beginning of 2017, we had
those were pretty
numbers
big
showing up for mid-seasons. Then it's more like you have a dedicated VGC judge, and an organizer, and sometimes even depending on the size of the event, you have somebody sitting behind the computer and dedicated to running the actual physical tournament software. And then it just kind of progresses from there. And interestingly enough, since we switched over, I hate saying it, since we switched to the Switch, but since the introduction of the Switch at the beginning of January, they've added in kind of new-ish roles. And so I'll delve into Bochum a little bit since I was one of the head judges there.
Yeah.
We had 3 people assigned to our tech team. And so if you've never heard that that term before, the tech team largely in the past has dealt with a wide variety of issues around the actual technology of running an event. Not the TOM itself, but in the past, the 3DS, the teams, the software, the actual system, and making sure also that players are using legal legal Pokemon. So the tech team typically was responsible for handling disconnects or game freezes, or if if somebody's Pokemon fails the team check in various ways, either on paper or in digital. That's typically the purview of the tech, usually the tech lead. But now there's, like I said, we had a team of 3 folks. We had a tech lead and we had 2 tech assistants. One of the tech assistants handled the traditional, this person's doing the team checks, checking your team digitally and also on paper. And then the new piece was a tech lead. His name was Daniel. He handled the actual commodities of like the Switch stands and the wiring and all of the outlets and stuff like that. And I believe they also had this same setup in Dallas the following weekend. And it's kind of a new thing. I know TPCI is kind of still feeling out how they want that to run, but just judging by what I've seen in regionals organizers, this is now like a thing that's going to be there. So you're going to have multiple people focusing on technology at the regional level. And
it
then
seems almost like that was maybe like an overcompensation for the expectation of issues with the Switch. But it seemed like Dallas ran pretty well.
Yeah, I didn't really hear any
I don't mean to laugh at
you.
you, Brendan, but I have to chuckle, and anybody who knows me or who was around when we first had I think it was Sun and Moon, but when we first had the first IC in London, will know why I'm laughing. Like we kind of were blindsided with how many problems there were related to tech at that tournament. And so it wasn't really so much overcompensation. It was like, that's going to never happen again.
Okay.
And we need to make sure that we handle everything. And so
I think that's valid.
Yeah, it was mostly like, we will not rest until we make sure that every possible thing that could go wrong is unearthed and brought to light, and we figure out beforehand. Like I tell you, the tournament, the VGC tournament lead, I don't remember his proper title for the tournament. They had like a new like structure system over in Jokmok, but Barris, he was the VGC coordinator / lead for Bochum. And I swear the man was nonstop at figuring out everything that could possibly go wrong. He was messaging us at all hours. He was bringing up scenarios like, well, what happens if this thing goes wrong? Or what happens if this team list thing? Or what happens if the players tie? Or this? It was like constant. And at the time, some people who hadn't experienced London in 2016 would think that it's overkill. But he's the single-handed reason why Bochum and Dallas ran as well as they did. And I say single-handed, but there's a lot of other people, like the folks at TPCI that were working on that, and so many other people that handled it. I just lost HDMI signal. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to continue. Because my monitors are both off and I don't see anything, but okay.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. I don't know if you need to timestamp that, but technical difficulties as I'm talking about tech. Who would have
knows?
But yeah, so like we all had a chat going on in preparation for Bochum and Dallas. So all of the leads and the head judges and the tech teams were all together talking about what we needed to do, what we needed to handle, preparing the hell out of it. And I gotta say that those teams are the reason why those tournaments ran so well. Like, you have Kay Dyson, who worked tirelessly on the TPCI side, and you have John Turner, who is the lead in Dallas, and you have Barish, like I said. They're, I can't say enough about those three people and what they did to pull off something amazing.
Mm-hmm.
With the amount of people all of a sudden that came out of the woodwork, and like I said,
it definitely worked. It definitely worked. I feel like the majority of the troubleshooting issues that I saw were, did you switch it to LAN mode?
My favorite one that I used in Bochum, and that I continually use. This is one of my favorite troubleshooting things. But did you turn it off and back on again?
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Right, like total IT support.
Did you switch it to LAN mode?
But yeah, at the regional level, it's like I said, it's basically the same thing. It's you have your floor judges, you have your head judge. There's the tech team. There's usually a lead of some kind that liaises with the tournament organizers themselves and with the TCG side of the house. Sometimes there's other roles that support that. So there's like paper people who make sure that the standings and the pairings are posted every round, and that get out the match slips. And there's folks that run Tom, and there's the people that do the prize wall. Like, I can go on, but just for VGC purposes, there's a larger team. And then you get to things like Internats and Worlds, and they're basically regionals on steroids.
Yeah.
And so every role that you see at regionals is there because we've, over the past couple of years, adapted the kind of old U.S. nationals structure and world structure into the regional level successfully, with some variations based on organizer or region. And also there's TPCI in the mix because they're typically at every Internet and obviously at Worlds in some capacity or other. And then Worlds, obviously you get to work with a translation team. I think in certain internets they bring those out as well. I just know it's in a lesser form, but that's always the big difference when you get to Worlds is interacting and knowing how to deal with the translators. So
yeah. You mentioned that a lot of the way that things are being done, especially with the changes and the growth all of a sudden that at least VGC has experienced, like the way that things are done is constantly changing. What if experiences that you've had personally, or experiences that other folks have had, or like the company as a whole have had running these tournaments, are contributing to the way that things are starting to change and be done now?
I think it's just basically every time you go out, it's important to learn something new, or kind of identify something that may not be working as successfully as you hoped, or notice something that worked really successfully that hadn't in the past, and then adapting that for future events. So it's always kind of like an evolution, an evolution of listen, I'm here all week, people. It's always it's always taking those things that you learn and bringing them forward with you. And we like to in VGC, and I think in TCG as well, but to a lesser extent, we like to refer to what's called tribal knowledge. And so a lot of us, what that means is basically we have knowledge that we don't necessarily write down or that anybody can learn from a book. It's knowledge that we share amongst our group and then kind of carry forward as a tradition or as like an evolving kind of like standard of things. So like the way that I run my tournaments now is not the way that I ran them when I first started, and that's because I learned from the best, and I've kind of adapted to the things that worked for me and didn't work for me, and that I've kind of picked up along the way. And then when I left, obviously I took a lot of my tribal knowledge with me, and so bringing it back, I'm bringing that back into the fold of the next generation. So it like for example, over in Bochum, they have a role called paper, and basically it kind of sounds lame, but it's basically a judge, not a separate role. So it's a VGC judge whose responsibility is to liaise with the person running Tom, get the pairings at the beginning of each round and hang them, get the match slips out to the tables to make sure that they're out, and then as the round starts to wind down, make a judgment call on when the round is kind of wrapping up, and go to the Tom operator and get a list of all of the tables that are still outstanding, and then go out and kind of check on them and make sure the match slips get up. And in Europe, this is especially successful because they were having really, really big round turnover times. And so it was sometimes taking upwards of like 10 to 15 minutes to turn over a round and get the next round started. And that's like unacceptable, for you guys to like stand around after the last match slip is turned in and wait for the next round for 15 minutes. It's just ridiculous. And so the organizers over there identified this as a problem and made this kind of judge role in VG to kind of trial it, and now they're going to be trying it over in TCG, and it's really successful. I was kind of like skeptical at first because I was like, that's what we do anyway. Like that's what VGC judges do all the time. I'm constantly looking to see what matches are finished, what's going on, pushing in chairs, getting match slips up, and kind of I'm always thinking about that, but not everybody does, and so it if not everybody is on the same page with that, it's important to have somebody that's their role, in addition to being a regular floor judge. Right. So that's something that I'm actually going to be using in my big tournaments going forward.
That's a dangerous job too, hanging up pairings. You gotta be careful.
you gotta be able to push through a crowd,
like a
for sure.
Stampede of 17-year-olds.
All right. So one thing that we were curious about is that in this relationship between players and TOs, a lot of the time, I think the perception out of it is that the TOs are doing things for the players, and obviously they are. They're hosting tournaments and making them, available to everyone in the area. But there isn't enough of a concept, I think, probably, of the players doing things for their TOs, whether that be like helping them like organizing tournaments or just like doing things to make TOs' lives slightly easier when it comes to either promoting, hosting, the running the actual day of. So as someone that has so much experience on the TO side, are there any things that players as a whole could be doing to make your life a little bit easier when you're hosting these tournaments?
Oh my God, there's so many ways to answer that question. That's like such a loaded question because there's a lot of things that would make our lives easier. But I think the major one is having to answer the same question over and over and over again. And so a lot of times, like I get it, new players or players who, maybe don't come to your tournaments all the time, don't exactly know where you typically put your information, or don't read the event posting fully, and then ask, when is the event starting? Or they come to you in the middle of a round and say, when is the next round starting? And it's kind of frustrating to continually answer the same question, and it takes up a lot of our time. And so my advice to new players and to any player really is, before you ask a question, see if the answer is somewhere. Or ask the organizer, where is your information for this tournament? Like, I will gladly answer that question a million times, because I would rather you ask me where it is so that you can go and educate yourself before asking a question than peppering me with questions throughout the day when I've already spent like 2 days editing and revising my tournament posting. So that's a big one. I think also asking when the next round is another one that I wish players would not do anymore, because literally, like honestly, that gets answered. That question gets asked all the time on the tournament floor.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is look around and see who's still playing. And if there's players still playing, that's your answer. The next round is not happening until those folks are finished.
Do I have time to go get lunch, Jen?
That question comes up so many times. And like if I've posted up like lunchtime, and then somebody comes up and asks me, what time do we have to be back from lunch, when I've already said I'm posting up this time,
Yeah,
I'm probably gonna stare at you a minute and not nicely stare
Now,
at you
while
for
we're
a
on the
minute.
topic, can I get your honest opinion on lunch breaks?
Oh,
I know
boy.
this is a very
Ooh.
controversial topic.
spicy.
So I understand how players, and I won't say the majority of players, but I want to feel like at least half of the community has expressed this opinion at one point. Players don't like lunch breaks because it kind of like ices the kicker, to take a phrase from football. And I get that. Like if you're on a really hot streak, you want to keep going. You don't want to stop. But for somebody that maybe is like sliding and has just lost like 2 rounds, maybe they need that break. And so everybody has a different opinion because everybody is a different kind of person, you know? And not to kind of go off on a tangent here, but I think this is related. Tournament stamina is a really big factor in whether or not you like lunch breaks.
It is, for sure.
That's true. I think we talked to Justin about that too.
Yeah.
Probably.
And it's not just, and players think of it as like, oh my God, I'm never going to get tired. It's okay. Like I'm 15 years old. I'm going to be great. It's not just stamina that way, folks. It's like, it's mental stamina too. It's like having the mental fortitude to get through 7, 8, 9 rounds or 10 rounds in Dallas, like getting through 10 rounds of playing Pokemon. People don't think about how taxing that is, but like it's stressful and it's strenuous and it hurts your brain. Like I know after like 4 rounds, my brain is like, yeah, I'm done. Like tap out. Like that's it.
Been there. Yep.
So lunch breaks, I'm for them and against them for both of those reasons. Like it helps some people, it hurts some people, and so I've kind of come to a happy medium where I give like extended rounds now, and so we'll be doing that next weekend, where we'll extend the rounds that are during the lunch times, so that players, if they finish early, can go and grab food, or if they have friends there and friends finish early, they can grab food together, or somebody can grab them, somebody can bring it back from the concessions, that kind of stuff. But on that vein, like I encourage anyone who is against lunch breaks or even for lunch breaks, bring snacks with you if they're allowed. If you go to a tournament, especially a regional, and they tell you that it's okay to bring, small snacks or something like that, absolutely toss some stuff in your bag that's going to be good, nuts or, granola bars or anything, healthy like that, that's not going to give you a sugar rush and then crash. Only because these things are like a real factor. So
yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think extended rounds is like you said, like a really good happy medium. I like that a lot, actually, especially because the chances for me personally are that I'm going to get waxed in one of those 2 rounds, so I'll have plenty of time for lunch. So it's great.
Or wax someone else. Self-confidence.
I
we love that here.
I appreciate you think that might be something that I would do.
I mean, and even extended lunch breaks are kind of a situation where if you don't do them right, they can be really annoying. Like if you tell everybody, all right, we're gonna extend the round this time. You don't have to be back for another hour. It's like, well, you just really gave us a lunch break. So extended rounds have to kind of also be tooled in a way that it kind of doesn't feel like it's too much time. For anybody finishing really quickly, it's always going to be too much time. But if I have 3 games and there's still 20 minutes left to the round, I think that's enough time to go and grab some lunch.
Oh yeah. The one issue that I've had with this, and I'm just nitpicking at this point, is with the extended rounds is, if the tournament is like, okay, be back at this time, right? And that's the time at which point they like generate pairings, and then everything is like getting back on track at that time instead of everybody sitting down at that time to play their match. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so our last question here before we move on with some of the other stuff with the rest of our shows. Jake and I are a little close to the situation here, but we know that you've always, like, since you started in VGC, been a very outspoken supporter of streams being an important part of the tournaments that you run. So why do you feel that streaming is so important to organizing tournaments?
I couldn't even tell you why the opinion formed the way it did. It's possibly because of the region that I started in and the fact that everybody was always begging me to allow them to stream my events. Either Patrick Donegan or James Beck or somebody was rolling up, or Aaron Zhang was rolling up with their laptop to stream the event. And so I kind of learned early on that A, people want to watch the matches, and B, people think that it's an important part of the tournament experience. Like, they want to see how their friends are doing around the globe, really, because this is not just like a local scene. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's friends with everybody. You want to know how your friends are doing, but not even that. Like, you want to see what the other guy's playing. So, it's there's a scouting aspect to it. And so early on, it's kind of, I've been indoctrinated into that kind of mindset that streaming is an important factor or important role in all levels of tournaments. And so as I've, developed as an organizer, obviously I started Liberty Garden, and made it important to have a standard stream for the area. So it wasn't like, well, which stream are we, which channel are we on this weekend, or who's running this, or who's bringing the equipment. It was important to me to just kind of like, all right, this is what we're doing. I'm going to buy equipment. We're always going to have this. And then it's always this standard kind of level of quality. And then it was that, then once we reached that benchmark, then it was about elevating it to, a higher standard. Like, let's get commentators, let's pick good matches, let's experiment with graphics and things like that. And it was always for the benefit of the community at that point. People want to tune in, they're going to tune in, and we wanted to make sure that they weren't dealing with a shoddy stream from somebody's phone or, whatever. And, we've had our bumps along the way, we've had our issues, but it's always been integral in where I see, organizing and how I understand what the player base wants. And, a couple of times I've actually spoken out to judges and organizers who work and run regionals and things, and been like, it's unacceptable at this point for you guys to not even attempt some form of stream or allow some form of stream within the bounds that you're allowed to. I understand that there's limitations in certain regions with unions and things like that. Like, that's something that I understand, but if you can, and if you're willing, and if you have people who are of a high caliber who are willing to come out and stream, then by all means this is something that you should be doing and encouraging. And if you don't have anybody in your area that is, as a high caliber that you feel your tournament deserves, by all means go out and find somebody, because there's always going to be somebody willing to come out and do it. So, I mean, like I said, it's evolved. Everything has evolved, but streaming is one of the things that's definitely evolved over the years as I've been around, and more people have stepped to the plate and said, you know what, I'm going to take this on myself. Like, there's Miguel out in California who runs Pokemon Labs, and he's doing some really great stuff. And I actually he was able to loan me some graphics for next week's stream. And then there's Victory Road in Europe, who just did that.
So good.
That humongous world champion invitational thing. Like, these are the kinds of steps and strides that you're expecting folks to do, and coming back and seeing this stuff, how it's, kind of grown and evolved. It's really, really important and exciting for me.
This podcast is a Victory Road stand podcast.
Oh,
Hell
big
yeah.
time Victory Road.
I love those guys, and to hear what they
just came out of left field with the most unbelievably high quality everything. I was just I remember when I heard about it
too.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that site for the first time, and I was like, okay, I mean, they launched very close to the time that Trainer Tower launched, and this is the spiritual successor to Nugget Bridge. I don't know how Victory Road could ever possibly work, and it just is the best, bar none.
Yeah. I got the pleasure to work with them at Bochum, and literally it's two guys. They brought all their equipment out. They had to oh, the stuff that they went through to get their equipment to Bochum and then to get it home, like the amount of money that they shelled out personally to make that stream a reality, and then the quality on their graphics and
so good.
The casters that they worked with, and literally they were out on the tournament floor. Like, I don't know if you guys saw pictures of Bochum or the stream area, but it was literally like there were banners on either side of their stream, and it was mostly open to everybody seeing it. And it was like the audio sounded great, their graphics were great, they were like interacting with everybody, they were picking great matches, they had great casters. Like, it was just overall a stellar performance.
Yeah.
So
really
I'm
good.
really impressed with those guys.
So on the topic of big streams, before we move on, it's my understanding that there is a pretty large event that's coming up in about a week and a half.
What? Really, Brendan? First I'm hearing of it. Jen, could you please tell us more?
So funny story, because this is what I do. There's always some kind of context to my answers. But when I decided to come back in August, I said to Jim Olivola, who was moving from Ohio back home to New Jersey, where he's from, I said to Jim, like, hey, you're moving back into the area. I want to judge your tournaments. I don't want to organize. I'm not doing it. So Jim was like, yeah, that's great. I'll organize. Well, if you're okay with it, I'll run your tournaments. I'll get everything logistically done, and you can come and judge. And I was like, fantastic. Like, that's what I like. I'm going to roll up and I'm going to judge, and it's going to be great. And we're going to have a good time. Like, tournaments were really small still back then, and it was a good time for me to kind of like jump back in and kind of get the muscle memory going again. And then apparently in Ohio there is like this big tradition of like doubleheader weekends. Yeah. And so Jim's like, hey, so President's Weekend, I really want to run this doubleheader thing. Are you on board with that? I'm like, Jim, what is my rule? And he's like, don't worry, I'll handle everything. It's going to be great. And I was like, all right, I'm down. Like, let's do it. Like, I'm cool. Like, because I can totally just sleep on President's Day after judging the whole weekend, whatever. So then our venue that we were supposed to have fell through, and Tournament Jen kind of like woke up and kind of looked around bleary-eyed and was like, wait, what? Somebody needs me? I'm being called? And then it was over from there. And it kind of like, I refer to like the different personalities of Jen in different ways. And everybody that knows me knows, like, there's Mom Jen, there's Judge Jen. And so Tournament Jen is kind of crazy when it comes to running tournaments and planning things. And so I kind of went nuts. And we're back at the APA Hotel in Woodbridge, and we have this humongous stream with an all-star cast of 9 people.
All-star.
So that's next weekend, live, twitch.tv/Liberty Garden to plug that location. And these 2 lovely gentlemen will also be on the stream. Don't let them fool you. They knew about it all along.
What? I guess I should better book flights.
This is a shock to me.
No, we're both very excited for that event. That'll be a super fun time. Absolutely.
Definitely looking forward to it. So if you can't get enough of us, if you can't get enough of our voices, you'll also get to see our faces.
I can't wait.
In a couple weeks. So that'll be a fun event. Although technically it's not affiliated with Soundproof in any way.
I mean, you say Soundproof, that now, but
Soundproof officially sponsors Liberty Garden.
We endorse.
There we go.
This is where we make our money.
Right?
Yeah. The big bucks are coming in now. So the last part of our interview, Jen, is of course where we flip it a little bit and we ask you to ask us a question. Because we're exhausted from asking questions, as we just said.
I mean, I feel like I did most of the talking, so I don't know.
I feel like I was just called out. Is that what just happened?
No, it's definitely not a call out. It's definitely a call out on myself. I know that I talk too much, and I've been
that's
told
why we have you.
Hey, that just makes our lives easier.
That I talk too much,
it's called being a good guest, Jen.
Yeah,
I try. I mean, we talked before you guys went live, and I think the one thing that, you know, maybe it's been talked about a lot, but the one thing that I would want to hear from you guys, because I value your opinions, and I think your audience does as well, is, you know, everybody's always talking about how the circuit is broken, or how, you know, they would change this thing or that thing to fix the circuit and to make it healthy, and whether or not that's Pokemon or CP or tournament levels or whatever, I'd be interested to hear your hot take, or even not your hot take, your like researched answer on what you think you could change to make the tournament or the circuit better.
Well, the first thing that always jumped out to me, and I think we talked about this like in the middle of Ultra Series with one of our other guests or something like that, was always accessibility of Pokemon. And I think that with the switch to Sword and Shield, that there have been huge strides made towards that, because a lot of the players that we would call more casual players who just want to come to one or two tournaments and aren't going to be gunning for a world invite, don't want to play restricted formats because it's hard to go out and get a modest Lunala that you can use in your tournament. So I think that the way that Sword and Shield is now is like very close to where I would like, accessibility of Pokemon being, with the one thing that I think they could change to make it a lot better, like almost instantly, is allowed QR teams in live events. I feel like that would be a pretty easy thing to implement, and I'm almost a little surprised that it wasn't, but that's like the last step as far as Pokemon accessibility goes, because all the quality of life changes were just like above and beyond what needed to be done, in my opinion. They did like such a phenomenal job of increasing the accessibility of Pokemon.
Yeah, for sure.
Mine's more of like a circuit-based answer, I think.
Please.
I don't know if this is a hot take or not. It might be a hot take for like 8 people per country. But like I personally would just like entirely dismantle the snowball. I think it's a cool system in concept, and I think it mostly failed in practice in that it kind of put the emphasis on the wrong things. So like the people on the snowball like clearly are good because they've earned their way there. It's not like you just wake up one day and they say, here's $5,000 to go fly to Australia.
That might
like
be
they
nice.
earned it.
Yeah.
But in earning it, they like probably flew out to like 3 or 4 regionals in a couple months and then farmed a bunch of locals every other weekend. And I don't really think that's the emphasis you want to be placing. And I also think it creates issues for the people that aren't actively searching for that snowball. And I don't profess to know anything about the financial like hierarchy within the circuit, but I feel like the money they're using on the snowball could be put to better use. I think like the old national stipend system I think was incredible. Like the ones like top 64, top 32, top 16 all got some varying rewards to go to their home national, which I think is a much better way to incentivize playing during the year and having the ability to be compensated slightly for a bigger tournament at the end of the year. But I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely see both sides of it. I think, it's important for the players to get or interact globally more than just Worlds. Because everybody knows, like I said, everybody knows everybody. This is a really tight-knit community for the most part, within, barring all of the the arguments that crop up on Twitter. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody wants to spend more time with everybody. So I think that's kind of where that came from. Plus, other games have successly introduced bringing big names out to tournaments paid in this way, obviously with varying levels of success. So I think that it was kind of an experiment they were trying to do in that vein as well, and so it's difficult to kind of say like completely get rid of it and go back into our respective continental camps until Worlds again, because it's definitely grown so much. I got to go out to Australia a few years ago for this, and I think without the stipend race I would have never had that opportunity, and it was such a wonderful experience to get to see people that I wouldn't normally see outside of Worlds, and to get to kind of experience tournaments at a different level on a different continent and how those things are run. And yeah, there's definitely a local flavor out there. They bring out their local players and the local judges, but there's also that, international community feel as it's on a smaller level than Worlds, but still like important in that vein. And so I wouldn't want them to dismantle it entirely, but I do agree that there needs to be some kind of hot fix in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I know they've tried, but
yeah.
It's a tough.
I could argue this for a while, so it's probably better to just cut it off. I'm not saying it's an entirely bad system. Like, you're absolutely right in that it creates a lot of opportunities for some people. So I like that aspect of it for sure, but I do think it could use some work.
think any system in any implementation is going to have ways to abuse it.
Yeah.
And so really the fault with the system is the way people have been abusing it. And the abuse is in the snowball, spending X amount of dollars to go to 4 regionals right off the bat to get on that snowball. And then, maybe not so much now with the way that the season is structured, but in the past, just basically ride that the entire year. And then you get to that international and you're almost guaranteed more points to snowball even further because your local players aren't getting to go to that national because they're not paid to go to it. So you always have that kind of like that built-in jetpack, if you will. So.
All right, Jake. I leave this segment to you at this point. So.
This is my favorite segment. The segment where we get to gush about music for a second.
All right.
Mine this week is kind of split. Like, there are 2 artists that I've been listening to on repeat, and I just keep bouncing back and forth between the 2 of them. The first is Hayley Williams, who's the lead singer of Paramore. She's now releasing solo music. She has 2 songs out now, and they're both incredible.
Are they both about Kevin?
Shut up. Literally shut up. There's a line in Simmer, one of the songs, where she says "give in," and Brendan keeps saying it sounds like Kevin. Which
it does. It sounds like she says Kevin.
Please stop. I need you to stop. Anyway, her 2 singles are very good, and then Dua Lipa has some new music out. I think she has.
Her.
Yeah, she has 3 new songs out. And "Don't Start Now" is my favorite, and I think that's a very popular opinion. So
I heard that on the radio.
I'm not claiming to be a pioneer there, but I am a big fan of those.
So mine for this week is very much in the opposite direction as far as new music goes, and I think Justin took us back to the 90s. I'm a little bit later than that, in that I've been listening to a lot of old Maroon 5 this week.
Oh.
And like
Songs About Jane era?
Yeah, Songs About Jane is like one of my favorite albums of all time. And they're just like the sound that they used to have used to be like jazzy and funky. Like before it became like I still like a lot of their songs, don't get me wrong, but it's very much like more intentionally poppy than some of their older stuff was. So that's what I've been listening to.
So I actually when we started this, I had a completely different answer. And I kind of wasn't like.
Have you been listening to music while we're recording?
No. I wrote down who I wanted to talk about, and then I realized like, no, I don't actually want to talk about that because I've only been listening to that kind of like as I need it. But lately I've been listening to "Prolong the Magic" by Cake on repeat.
Cake.
So Cake is literally from the album came out in 1998 for. And I hate to admit it, but that's the year I graduated high school. So none of you were probably born then.
I was.
We both were.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
so
95.
I don't feel so bad.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so I've been listening to Cake's "Prolong the Magic" like on repeat, and it's such a great album. And I kind of am regretting that I didn't appreciate it when it came out, and I was 18. I don't know, listening too much to Britney Spears, I guess. At that point.
I love their album "Comfort Eagle."
Oh my god, I love that album too.
Yeah.
But "Prolong the Magic" is like really good. You get to really bangers like "Sheep Go to Heaven" because they sing about how sheep go to heaven and goats go to hell, and it's like, what the hell are they talking about? But as you get through it, it's like, all right, yeah, this is a banger. Like I like this.
That's funny.
So, definitely that.
Awesome. I haven't listened to Cake in a while.
Yeah.
So I'll do that.
I recommend picking it up.
I just might, Jen. I just might.
All right.
All right.
Got another one.
That's going to wrap up our segment with Jen this week. Jen, thanks so much for coming on our show and talking to us. And also just thank you in general for everything, because I think I can like pretty honestly say that I might not be on this podcast right now if Jen hadn't kind of like single-handedly launched my commentary career, so to speak. So thank you for that as well.
Wow. Thank you. And when we're done with this, I'm going to cry because that really means a lot. Thank you.
So to reiterate, you can hear our voices as brought to you by Jen in 2 weekends over a President's Day weekend where Jake and I will be casting the doubleheader midseason and PC. And if you don't want to watch us on stream, you can just show up instead and play in the tournament, which would be honestly preferable.
Please show up. But also watch the stream.
Also watch the stream.
It's going to be awesome.
Do one or the other.
While watching.
It's going to be great.
Bring it up on Twitch. But no phones at the table.
Yes. I will actually take your phone away.
All right, so stay tuned for just a couple seconds while Jake segues us out with a little bit of music, and we'll be right back. We're back. Thanks for sticking with us through the brief interlude there. That's going to be a wrap for us for episode 16 here. So thanks again for listening to this episode and for your continued patronage, or for your new patronage, as we mentioned briefly a little bit earlier about some of the new viewers that we might have picked up with some of our higher profile guests over the past couple of weeks. So thanks for joining us for that content, and we appreciate your continued listening. And of course, big thank you to Jen. I think we were able to get some really good conversation going about some of the things that we peeked under the hood a little bit, right? I think a lot of us show up to events and are just kind of like, all right, please run my tournament.
Yeah. Most players, I don't think, don't really have a concept of what it takes to run a tournament, and not like that's a fault. Like most of us want to play and not host.
Well, right? Why would you?
Totally fine, but it's really cool to get that perspective from someone who's been doing it so often. So, big thanks to Jen for joining us. Big thanks to y'all for listening. As always, our socials are at Soundproofcast, at MrBdog46, at MajorBowman_, which I am not ashamed of, Brendan.
Are you telling me you wouldn't like to have the handle without the underscore, Jake?
Oh, I would, 100%. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, glad we've cleared that up. And finally, in 2 weekends, if you are itching for Soundproof content during our 2-week hiatus, we of course will be on Jen's stream, which I believe is twitch.tv/LibertyGarden.
Yes.
So you can catch us and some of our talented friends there on stream.
Yep. February 15th and 16th.
Yep, it's likely to be, a pretty large event. Jen's hosted, like regional size mid-seasons in that area before. It's a very strong region. So if you want some high quality VGC and some excellent, excellent commentary, please tune in to that. So until then, we will see you in 2 weeks, at which time we will come to you with episode 17. So goodbye.